Hi everyone, welcome to the video. I've got one today that I'm really excited about. This is a vintage Seiko 7025-8099. It's often referred to as a poor man's 62 MAS or MAS, Seiko's iconic vintage dive watch. And if you're looking for one of those, you can expect to pay thousands. However, you can pick up one of these for a few $100. And this one is in pretty decent, honest, not perfect, but honest and decent condition. It's got definitely the crystal has a crack. We need to take care of that, but the edges look pretty good. And it will tick some, but it is definitely not running well. It's just a snow field on the time grapher, and it doesn't really run for very long. That is a nasty gouge in the case back. I haven't opened this up fully all the way. I did loosen it. It was difficult. It's not bad in here. I really should be using a larger screwdriver here, but we'll go ahead and remove the automatic rotor. Let our power down here. Is there any power? Boy, not very much. Go ahead and get the balance out of here. Careful. Come on. I'm going to go ahead and take out the pallet fork just in case there's some power left in here. I'm just not believing, not believing that that all that power's out. So I'm guessing that gouge in the case back is from someone tried to get in here and gave up. Whoa, there's definitely some power in here. Because I'm looking in here and it doesn't look, look at this. I kind of wish I'd fully encased it and then taken the hands off, but it'll be fine, I think. I think someone tried to get in here and gave up. Okay, I've got the stem pulled out and I'm trying to press this little lever to, there. It's hard to do with finger cuts. I'm very curious to see this dial. Now, you can't always tell through the crystal, but I was hoping it was one of those where the crystal was a mess and the dial is really nice. And guys, it is. Oh man, let's get these hands off and get everything in a nice safe spot. I kind of hope this watch hasn't been serviced before, to be honest. Usually these movement spacers just kind of slide right out, but this one's not. So I'm afraid I'm going to damage it. So I'm just going to go ahead and loosen the dial feet screws. They're an eccentric screw. You just kind of rotate them like a half a turn and the dial feet should slide right up. And it did come off with a little bit of handling, so that's good. Well, I can see that the dial feet screws aren't touching the posts, but I'm still having to pry this up a little bit. But there's our dial washer. And I'm going to leave this little spacer here. And we'll put this away. We'll go ahead and get the screws off this cover for our dial side. So I haven't seen a single watchmaker's mark. I haven't seen a marred screw. I think I'm the first, guys. And this is the spring, the corrector for our date, and notice how that goes in between the teeth of the date disc. Move our hour wheel. Sliding pinion. This is the wheel that flips the date. Two pieces. This little intermediate wheel has two sets of teeth set underneath here. And lift our little date corrector spring. That wheel is a little fussy. Just very gently give it a little persuasion. It's fighting me out of the way. Put you here. So the setting mechanism here is under tension by this long spring. Just gonna relieve some tension here. And this is notably lighter than the previous Seiko movement I serviced, the 6106C. This is just a little cover plate. Holds everything in here. A setting lever. You can see how Seiko combined the yoke with this big spring. And I'm going to leave the cannon pinion here for now. We'll come back to that. Get this reverse threaded screw off. Pull these little paw lever arms. This is what does the automatic winding. Free this wheel up. Man, this is so much simpler compared to the Omega I did a few weeks ago. Okay, this is held on by a little clip on the other side. Seiko has a genius on how to, I guess, combine parts into, will simplify the number of parts. It's a broad screw. Now we'll take this bridge. It's a train wheel bridge, but also is the automatic works bridge. Older Seikos have a separate automatic works bridge that you would screw on top of the train wheel bridge. So again, another example of simplifying things. So I'm not prying here, just sort of trying to lift to see where I can break the tension. You can see that little clip here on the other side, a little C-clip that goes on a notch on that shaft there. We'll put this aside for now. We'll get to the wheels here. It's our seconds wheel that the seconds hand mounts on. And this funky guy, our escape wheel. It's our click spring. Slots in there. Our barrel. We'll get to that mainspring later. I'm gonna go ahead, flip this over, and we'll go ahead and get the cannon pinion out now. This is our last screw. Persuade this little cock off the central wheel here. Just straight up usually does the trick. All right, that's the last wheel. This style of barrel that Seiko uses here has like a long, the barrel cover kind of has a long lip that goes over the side of the barrel, and they're kind of a pain. And I've just found using a screwdriver, working my way around to pry it off works best. If you have a better way, I'd love to know it. Note the direction of the coil. Nope, there just went our arbor. Pretty tricky with finger cuts on, but I really don't want to get my fingers nasty. Look at the filth in here. That's the bridle, and it will go on the inside, not against the barrel wall, but on the inside. I'm going to go ahead and get these parts in the ultrasonic cleaner. I use Liquinox, Alkanox, and while those are going through the cleaning process, I'm going to disassemble the what there is of the automatic works. There's a little C-clip that goes into a notch on this post here. Just be careful not to lose that. Well, that's pretty minimalistic. What's that? It's 1, 2, 3, 4 parts, including the C-clip. You really have to appreciate that engineering. Oh, I forgot the cannon pinion, so we'll get that in here with this batch. This is Buzz. He's my partner in watchmaking and does a lot of the dirty work. This is my little dryer setup. Just a little food dehydrator, and I put a little piece of tape here to mark the temperature. We'll clean our balance wheel and our pallet fork next. This is isopropyl alcohol. I'll put these in here for just 2 minutes. Just get a few gentle swirls. It's actually a little less than 2 minutes. I'll pull this out, get him on some watchmaker's paper. There you go. And we'll just gently dry everything here, including make sure there's no moisture on the hairspring coils. And then we'll give it a little test. I usually find this part a little inspiring to keep on going for the rest of the build. I worked on the case back to get rid of that nasty gouge on the outer edge, and it's come out pretty well. I really didn't touch the rest of it though. I didn't want it to look perfect or too clean. It wouldn't match the case then. I've got a new crystal, so I'll need to pop this old one out. I've tried to push this out with my hands. It's just not happening, so I'm gonna have to use a press to push that out. All right, we've got the old crystal out, and you can see the tension ring here. Now, original Seiko crystals, like these, are very hard to find, but Cousins UK has this replacement available, so I'll give this a try. Don't know. Give one a good go. This fits underneath the bezel, really. I see a little bit of fluff. Okay, I've got the bezel kind of preset. You know, there's a spring under here, so I've kind of got it wrapped just so. And I'm going to press and twist, see if I can. It's on here, but it is tight, so yeah, I might come back to this later, but it is on here. Wipe my oily prints off here. Okay, we're gonna see if this gasket fits okay. Slot it in here, and we'll get the case back on. Just a little test. Some inspiration to continue with the build. Going to use 8217 for my braking grease. Putting 3 or 4 dabs of 8217 along the edge of the barrel here. This is a little messy. I'm going to go back and clean this up. So this bridle goes on the inside. It does not go on the outer edge as you might be tempted. So it goes on the inside. Sorry, I know this is hard to see. This is even harder to do with finger cuts on in front of the camera. So I'm going to pull this out of frame and come back. Okay, we've got this started. I'm just going to feed this in. Take care not to warp the spring here. With a little patience, once you get to this point, it gets pretty easy. It's easier than it looks with these finger cuts on. They're just very grippy, and the spring doesn't really slide like it would without them. Previously, I've even had little tiny bits of finger cut break off and get caught up in the main spring, and I've had to pick that out. So I don't know, maybe it may be better off not using the finger cuts. Okay, get our arbor in here. Looks not quite in. There you can see the arbor protruding to the barrel there. And a little D5 here on the bottom of the barrel and on the spring here. I'll cap our barrel. Little D5 here. And a little D5 here before we press this down. So now using this tool, I've seen people, at least where they video it, is to press it and it snaps and they're done. But I like to kind of move it, press it again, move it, press it again, just to make sure we got it on there. Just checking the play and the engagement on the arbor there. And a little D5 here for this wheel for the automatic winding. 90-10 on this jewel. Get our paw lever here lined up. So I'm going to use this pith wood since this pivot has to go through. Remember, we have to get that C-clip on here. This is our train bridge, so we have to get the automatic works done before we can install it. Let's flip this over and see if we can get that C-clip into that little notch on that pivot. I'm gonna put a little D5 here first. That metal is on metal. After a little trial and error, I figured out I needed some Rodico under there to sort of put that wheel flush with the bridge so that notch would be exposed. So now I've got the C-clip here. I'm just going to slide it over. I think that's it. I'll just check the motion. That feels pretty good. We're not going to need this anymore. Check it one more time. You can see that C-clip is pretty secure. So D5 for where our barrel goes. So 90-10 on this jewel for the center wheel. Our escape wheel. See if we can get this in the pivot here. It's kind of funny. I think most people talk about how hard it must be to get these wheels in, but this goes pretty quickly. But the hard part's coming up. Our seconds wheel, see the long pivot. So I'm going to put a little drop of, I should have done this before. I'm going to put some 90-10 here on that drill wheel. You can lubricate the shoulder on the pivot there, but you have a risk of contaminating that wheel when you drop this in. Get our click spring in here. There's a little hole and tab on that lower end. You can see that there. Get that lined up. And it drops in place. Okay, need to get you situated. This is usually the trickiest part, just getting this one piece to fit. First we have to get that long pivot aligned. And then the posts. You can tell from the wobble we're not there yet. Nope. 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 All right, I'm going to try and nudge. Oop, did you see that drop? I think we got it. Maybe. Gently. Yeah. All right, let's get the screws started on this. So what you want to do is tighten these down, not all the way, but just where you feel some resistance. And then you want to check the wheels one more time. and then give it a final tighten. It doesn't take much to do a final tighten. We're talking about watches here, folks. Put a little bit of 90-10 on these jewels here, here. Get this paw lever out of the way. Fit this over the arbor. Put a little D5 in between there. And a little D5 on this post here. This paw lever. I honestly can't quite remember the order of getting these parts back together, so it's going to be a little experimentation, but this big screw. All right, now get this on here and get these little paw lever, easy for you to say, paw lever arms engaged with the little ribs on this wheel. Just kind of checking to make sure it's working okay. Then I'll get a reverse threaded screw in here. Pallet fork in here. This guy's having a little trouble with him today. I think that's it. Oh boy, this is clumsy. I think I think we've got it. Seems like it's in there. This little guy is shifting around a little bit, so I'm going to hold him down with the tweezers while I tighten. Check in to make sure he's not bound up. Seems okay. We'll finish tightening this and check it again, and we'll put some power in it. We've got some power in here, so we'll check our pallet fork to make sure it snaps back and forth. I'll be placing the grease for the pallet fork onto the face of that jewel. Hey, this is Editing Matthew. I know this is hard to see, so I think this is a good opportunity to make sure you're aware of the Weekend Watch Repair channel by Adam. He's got some great footage of this, and I'll try and link to his video in the description and put a card on screen. And you flick this back and forth 4 or 5 times to spread that over the teeth of the escape wheel, and then you go back and reapply another little tiny bit of that oil on the pallet fork again. And you flick the pallet fork back and forth 4 or 5 times to advance the escape wheel once again, and you repeat this 4 or 5 times till all of the teeth theoretically are evenly lubricated. Well, I'm curious to see how this goes because I actually had trouble getting this in for the cleaning. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time with this guy. Okay, I think he's in down there, so I'm gonna see if I can set this down and nudge the top in. Oop. Come on. There we go. Get this tightened down, then we'll go for the jewel here. So for this spring to release this jewel, I'm going to use two tools. I've got an oiler here in the center. Pushing that tab, you can see the notch here on the right. Now, as long as I'm holding something in the center, that spring shouldn't go flying off. Okay, reorient here and get this second tab over to that notch. Just about there. Now I'm going to grab some Rodica. We'll retrieve this jewel and clean it with some alcohol, we'll dry it, and get a drop of oil on there. Okay, I wouldn't suggest doing it this way. This is just so you can kind of see it on camera. Let's see if we can do this adequately enough. There we go. I feel a little shakier than usual. I think I get, honestly, I think it's a little nervous about these jewels and it makes me even shakier. Now to get the spring back on is, as you might imagine, harder than getting off. Poke a tab under there and see if we can get a second tab under there. Okay. 2 down, 1 to go. All right. So close. There we go. Now we want the notch on the spring aligned with the notch on the setting. Up a little too much. There we go. Okay, now we just got to do the other side. Okay, in the interest of personal development, I'm going to try the one tweezer method where I keep the tweezers on the inside and rotate the spring around. Boy, that feels riskier. We did it though. I think I'd still recommend the two tool method. I'll get this out and cleaned. Okay, this is a little steadier. Let's see if we can get it oil up. And nope, we're gonna have to re-clean that. Re-cleaned, dried, and we're back. Perfect. Okay. Get one tab started. Yeah, I think I'm going to go back to two tools. This is just too risky. All right, 2 tabs. Work this third one to the notch. Okay, this one was a little more compliant. Little D5 inside the cannon pinion. Snap this in. Avoid touching the seconds post though. So before we finish the dial set, I want to flip this over, get some power in it, and see how it looks on the time grapher. Okay, so this is not a bad start. Now this will change as this runs, the next day or two. Put a little grease here in our sliding pinion. I'm going to go ahead and get the stem in here to kind of lock this into place. Oop, I missed the groove in the main plate. There we go. A little grease here on this post. Probably not necessary, but it shouldn't hurt anything. There's not a ton of motion there. This large spring is our yoke. I put a little grease on the edges of the yoke where it slots down into the sliding pinion there. I'm not going to use all that grease, I'm just kind of using it to brush. It's probably not the best technique, but I have plenty to work on myself. I don't pretend to be perfect. Work this, there we go. Work that in. Oh, maybe that'll behave once we get the cover on. It's a little messy. Clean this up first. All right, the little lubrication in the setting lever here that goes over that post. Work that guy down in here. I'm going to go ahead and put some grease where the setting lever meets that spring. So Seiko has combined the yoke and this spring, where a lot of watchmakers have those as separate pieces. This sort of pre-lined. I have to release the tension to get the lever down in there. Okay. So the lever's worked into the spring and it's into the stem. So now I can, nope. It's popped out. Okay. So let's, oh, I made a mess out of it. Okay, let's get the tension off. Reset the yoke into this sliding clutch pinion. The setting lever's aligned. Nope. Try it again. Yeah, we're gonna have to get the cover on there first. I'm not quite sure why I was even attempting to do that without the cover on. No, do I need to put the minute wheel on first? So I'm going to go ahead and lubricate this post here and get this minute wheel on to make sure that it's going to fit before I screw that down. Yeah, plenty of room, actually. Yeah, I just wasn't sure that would clear and didn't want to get that screwed on if I needed to get that wheel on first. Now we can get this back. Come on, back in place. Feels okay. Gonna put some D5 here. And just like on the other side, 90-10 on these jewels. And you don't lubricate the pallet fork jewel. Get our wheel, mesh it up with the minute wheel here. This is D5 on the post for the little date wheel, and a little bit on the rail here. And we'll also do a little D5 on this little post for that smaller intermediate wheel for the date. Let's see a little bit on top I'll have to clean up. Get our date wheel here. Make sure that finger, that little post on the wheel is upward. And I'll fit this little intermediate wheel in here. Remember, it's got two sets of gears. There's a set underneath. This is not feeling very good, so I'm gonna take this out and try a different order. All right, let's see if this order works a little better. Mesh up these guys. Looks okay. Now we'll get the hour wheel on top here, see if we can mesh it in between these wheels. If it doesn't feel very nice, you don't want to force it, that's for sure. There we go. Much better. Okay, I'm gonna put a little D5 on this post where the little date finger goes. Just want to make sure that that little post sticking up on the wheel is in between the little curve there, or it won't work. This is the date corrector spring. Gonna slot this in, and remember how that's that little notch goes in between the teeth on this date disc. Okay, this is editing, Matthew. So I covered this up with my hands, but this is underneath, that little notch is underneath the date disc, and we're going to pull that out and slide it in between the teeth of the date disc, just like that. So sorry about that. Okay, there. Well, I'm not sure if you saw any of that. I'll see if I can fix it later if you didn't. So one of the reasons you want to test how the watch runs earlier is you don't want to get to this stage, get everything together, and discover you've got a problem that you could have fixed long ago. So that's one of the good practices of putting it on a time grapher earlier on. I'll be curious to see how this runs later after it's run in a little bit. You know, sometimes the amplitude will shift one way or the other. The beat error will shift one way or the other. Accuracy certainly will shift. And obviously it can get better or worse, but it'll be certainly within regulation tolerances. So just keep that in mind when you see time grapher results on my channel or anybody else's channel. Get our washer on before we get the dial. Get our dial secured here. Press down on him and get our dial feet screws oriented correctly. This dial looks so good. I'm really stoked about this watch. Gotta get our hands set to midnight. in sync with the date change. I like to use these non-metallic tweezers on the hands. The hands are not in perfect shape, but they're in really nice shape for an old watch. Okay, that's pretty good. 2-3 minutes of midnight. Like this little square. I don't know what you call that. It's not really a lollipop, but the seconds hand repeats the motif of the indices. See if we can maneuver the case down over the movement. It's kind of, it needs to be higher. I'm going to put something underneath the movement to raise it up so that I can get the case over it more. With the case tube underneath the dial. There we go. I'll flip this over. And keep it from sliding around. We're going to get the stem in here. Gives it a little bit of a twist. I find giving just a little bit of twist to the stem helps it get in place. Now this movement ring was tight, coming apart. Press this down in there. Twist. There we go. Perfect. All right, get the rotor, the oscillating weight for the automatic winding on here. I'm holding this flush with the tweezers while I tighten the screw. This is definitely not the right screwdriver. Feel free to shame me in the comments. Put a little 90-10 down in there for those bearings. Work that in a little. All right, get this gasket back in. I'm a little short on straps, but I did find this black one, at least I think kind of works. I think this watch looks pretty fantastic, frankly. The case and bezel has some light to moderate wear, but it's honest. I think it still looks really nice, especially considering it's from 1977. Not perfect. After a few days of running and a few minutes of regulation, well, we've got it to within 2-3 seconds a day. Amplitude is more or less the same. It's maybe gone up a smidge, and the speed error is perfect. I've been trying different straps. Found this strap from Vario. It's actually made for a Casio AE1200. I think this looks pretty nice. But I have one more that I think I like better. This is also one of those notched straps made for the Casio AE1200. It's notched out at 18 millimeters and it flares out to, I think it's 20, or is it 22 actually? Either way, I think it looks pretty nice. And I got the bezel sorted out. It's nice and smooth. So I think that's going to be it for this video. I hope you found it entertaining, maybe even helpful. And be sure to check out Weekend Watch Repairs channel that I mentioned. Adam's definitely got some good content over there. Thanks for joining along in this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Until then, take care.